Welcome to True Horror Vault. There are places on Earth where sunlight never reaches. Places where for thousands of years, only darkness, cold stone, and unknown echoes have dwelled. America's ancient caves are not merely geological wonders. They are surrounded by terrifying experiences, mysterious disappearances, and first-hand accounts that science still cannot explain to this day. Today's story comes from a terrifying cave in Tennessee, USA. A place where locals fear to step foot after sunset. Because they believe that inside the cave, there is something that is neither human nor animal. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and close the door. Because today's story begins right now. Story 1. The Final Tunnel of Bell Witch Cave. Location: Bell Witch Cave, Adams, Tennessee, USA. My name is Ethan Miller. I studied geology in college. Later, cave exploration became my passion. Over the past 12 years, I have entered over 100 caves across America. Narrow tunnels, 100-foot drops, complete darkness, none of this was new to me. So when my friends Lucas, Sarah, and Dan suggested we go on a night exploration of Tennessee's famous Bell Witch Cave, I didn't hesitate for a single moment. Of course, everyone said the exact same thing: don't go there at night. I didn't believe in those stories, but today, I know. They were not lying. It was around 7:30 in the evening. The four of us arrived at the cave's entrance. The sun had nearly set. The mouth of the cave was so dark, it felt as though light had never been born inside it. I switched on my headlamp. Lucas chuckled and said, "If we see a ghost, take a pic." Picture first. We all laughed. That was our last normal laugh that day. After walking inside the cave for about 20 minutes, there was nothing around us except limestone walls and damp soil beneath our feet. Every sound echoed for several seconds. Suddenly, drip, drip, drip. I froze. It sounded like water, but that part of the cave was bone dry. I shone my light upward. Nothing. Not a single drop of water. Yet, the sound continued. Advancing a bit further, we found a narrow, crawling tunnel. It was so tight that we had to crawl on our stomachs. I went first. Lucas behind me, then Sarah, and finally Dan. After crawling for about 10 minutes, the tunnel suddenly opened up. As I stood up, I realized this place wasn't on our map. I pulled out the paper map from my bag. The location didn't match. Lucas said, "Maybe it's a new chamber." I nodded, but deep down, an uneasy feeling started to set in. "Ethan." I whipped around instantly. "Who's there?" Everyone looked at me in confusion. Lucas asked, "What happened?" I said, "Did you call me?" All three shook their heads at once. "No, none of us called you." A sudden chill ran through my chest. Another 5 minutes later, Dan suddenly shouted out, "There's a light over there." We all turned to look. In the distance, a pale white light, as if someone was standing there wearing a headlamp. I yelled, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No response. We started walking toward the light. The strange thing was, the further we moved forward, the further the light receded. For nearly 15 minutes, the exact same thing happened. Finally, the light, slowly, faded away into the darkness. Right at that moment, someone exhaled heavily right next to my right ear. I jumped and turned around. No one was there. But the side of my ear felt as cold as ice. Sarah said in a trembling voice, "I feel like someone is watching us." I said nothing, because I was feeling the exact same thing. Wherever we pointed our lights, it felt as though someone moved away just before the light could reach them. We decided to head back. But the tunnel we came through was gone, completely gone. There was only a solid stone wall in its place. I checked the map several times. I pulled out the compass. The compass needle was spinning erratically. Then, we all heard the same sound. Scratch. Like massive claws, scraping against the stone wall. The sound was slowly coming closer. Scratch. Scratch. Lucas said, shaking. "Run." The four of us started running for our lives. Running inside a cave is extremely dangerous. Yet at that moment, there was no time to think. Suddenly, my headlamp went out. Then, Lucas's, Sarah's, Dan's. The entire cave plunged into absolute darkness. I had never seen such pitch darkness in my entire life. I couldn't even see my own hand. Right then, from within the darkness, someone whispered, "Go back." The voice was neither a woman's nor a man's. It felt like multiple voices speaking in unison. Panicking, we disconnected and reattached our headlamp batteries. As soon as the lights turned back on, we all froze in terror. In front of us, on the damp stone floor, were 4 pairs of human footprints. But there were only 4 of us standing there. So, whose were these extra footprints? And the most terrifying part? They were there, advancing directly toward us. The final footprint stopped right in front of my boots. But no one was standing there. We didn't waste another second. Finally, after searching frantically, we found an exit path out of the cave. When we stepped outside, we realized it was already dawn. We thought we had been inside for 2 hours at most. In reality, nearly 11 hours had passed. A few days later, I sat down to review the camera footage. All videos were fine, except for the last 8 minutes. That segment was pitch black, accompanied by a continuous static sound. And at the very end, a very faint voice could be heard. "Ethan, come back." I never returned to Bell Witch Cave again. But even today, when I wake up in the middle of the night, next to my ear, I still feel that exact same ice-cold breath. And sometimes, I feel as though someone is whispering my name. You are listening to True Horror Vault. In our first story, we heard about a breathtaking experience in the darkness of Tennessee's Bell Witch Cave. But believe me, today's next account is even stranger. Because this cave is part of the longest known cave system in the world. Millions of tourists visit, and countless researchers have worked here for years. Yet, there are parts where official government maps come to an end. Listen to this experience from a former cave guide. Story 2. The Lost Voice of Mammoth Cave. Location: Mammoth Cave, Kentucky, USA. My name is Luke Harrison. I worked as a seasonal cave guide at Mammoth Cave for nearly 7 years. I have led tourists into the depths of this cave countless times. Every turn, every chamber, every stone in this cave was familiar to me. At least, that is what I thought. Everything changed on an October night in 2022. That night, there were 4 of us. Myself, Owen, Chloe, and Noah. Our assignment was to inspect the safety of an old, seldom-used research trail. During the day, regular tourists are not permitted to go there, because the trail is dangerous. Around 8 at night, we entered the cave. For the first hour, everything was normal. Then, I noticed, mingling with our footsteps was another set of footsteps. There were 4 of us, yet the echoes sounded like 5 people walking. Thump, 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 thump. I stopped. The extra footsteps stopped as well. Owen laughed and said, "Just cave echoes." I nodded, but I felt this wasn't an echo. Going further inside, we reached a massive chamber. The ceiling was so high that even our headlamps couldn't reach it. Right then, I heard clearly a small child laughing. I froze. Chloe heard it too. She whispered, "There shouldn't be any children here." We shone our lights everywhere. Only darkness. We started moving faster. Suddenly, Noah shouted out, "Someone is standing over there, about 50 yards away. A human-like shadow figure." It wasn't moving. There was no light source on it. It was just standing there. I shouted, "Hello? Are you lost?" No answer. As we began to walk closer, the figure slowly faded directly into the stone wall. None of us spoke a word. Because all 4 of us had seen the exact same thing. Then came the most terrifying part. Our radios crackled simultaneously. Through the static, a voice broke through. "Do not leave." I thought it was another team, but there was no one else assigned to our frequency that night. We decided to head back. As we walked, we suddenly noticed our red directional trail markers were gone. Not a single one remained. All disappeared, as if someone had removed them. Owen said, "Impossible." I didn't reply, because right then, someone behind me said very softly, "Luke." I turned around instantly. No one was there. But on the ground was a pair of muddy, bare footprints. They were moving toward me. Suddenly, all sound inside the cave ceased. No dripping water. No bats. Not even the echo of our breathing. An absolute silence. That caused physical pain in the ears. Right then, far off in the darkness, a dozen small white lights illuminated. At first, I thought they were headlamps. Then I realized they were eyes. Many pairs of eyes. All at the exact same height. all staring directly at us. Noah said in a trembling voice, "Run!" We sprinted with everything we had. From behind us came the sound of many people walking together, but no one had the courage to look back. While running, I suddenly tripped and fell. My headlamp struck a rock and turned sideways. The light beam fell onto the back wall for a few seconds, and what I saw, I still haven't been able to forget. On the surface of the rock wall were numerous human handprints, but they weren't fresh on the surface. It looked as though someone was pressing their hands from the inside, as if people were trapped behind the rock wall, trying to claw their way out. Thump, thump, thump. The impacts gradually grew louder. Owen dragged me to my feet. We didn't wait another moment. After nearly 40 minutes, we finally made it back to the main tourist trail. Stepping outside, we were all gasping for air. But the stranger part was yet to come. Next to our 4 pairs of muddy boots was another pair of wet, bare footprints. They had followed us out of the cave. But after a few feet forward, they abruptly ended, as if whatever left them had vanished into thin air. A week after the incident, I quit my job. Even today, if anyone asks me, I tell them, Mammoth Cave is beautiful, incredible, a wonder of the world. But not all of its tunnels are meant for humans. Some paths are still waiting for someone. You are listening to True Horror Vault. So far, we have heard the experiences of 2 people who returned from the darkness of Tennessee's Bell Witch Cave and Kentucky's Mammoth Cave. But today's story is even stranger, because this cave is not only one of the deepest in America. Locals have believed for years that unnatural weeping sounds are heard here, sounds that belong to no living person. Today's incident took place at Moaning Cavern in California. Story 3. The Thing That Breathed Beneath Moaning Cavern. Location: Moaning Cavern, Calaveras County, California, USA. My name is Ryan Carter. I am a rock climbing instructor and have been doing rope descents in various California caves for years. I never believed in the paranormal. Every event has a scientific explanation. That was my firm belief. But that night in November 2023 changed my beliefs forever. Mason, Olivia, Grace, and I, the 4 of us, went down with special permission to shoot a night documentary. The plan was to descend from the main chamber deeper into a lesser-known narrow shaft. An old local guide had told us just one thing before we went down. If you hear human crying down there, under no circumstances should you go toward that sound. We laughed it off. It was 10:48 p.m. We tied our ropes and descended one by one. About 160 feet down, I spotted the first unusual detail: fresh gouges on the cave wall. These couldn't have been made by humans. Each mark was nearly 2 feet long and so deep, as if the solid limestone had been sliced like wax. Mason joked, "Maybe a giant bear." I said, "A bear couldn't even get down here." Then, we all went quiet, because someone was crying. A woman, very slowly, in deep pain. Grace said, "Maybe another group." I replied immediately, "We are the only ones in this cave tonight." Saying that made my skin crawl, because I had checked the permit list myself. We avoided the direction of the sound and took another path. But whichever way we went, the crying seemed to follow us from that direction, as if the sound was circling around us. Suddenly, Olivia stopped dead in her tracks. Her face was completely pale. She pointed a trembling finger ahead. As I shone my light, it looked like a person was standing there. Tall, silent, head bowed. No movement whatsoever. I shouted, "Hey, are you okay?" No answer. Taking a few steps forward, the light beam hit the rock face. There was no one there. Just a strange shadow, which remained in the exact same spot for several seconds, even after our light moved away. We could feel that something wasn't right. Right then, the temperature gauge strapped to my chest suddenly plunged from 54 degrees Fahrenheit down to 31 degrees Fahrenheit. In just a matter of seconds. Such a drastic change inside a cave is impossible. Then, all our lights began to flicker simultaneously. Mason checked the batteries. Everything was fine, yet the lights wouldn't stay steady. Suddenly, from the absolute bottom of the cave came a sound that I have never heard in my entire life. It was not a roar, nor a cry. It sounded like someone taking a breath with massive lungs. Once, twice. Then the air inside the entire cave felt like it was being sucked inward. Even our clothes pulled forward from the draft of air. Grace suddenly screamed, "Ryan, look down!" I pointed my light. On the dust of the cave floor Circular depressions were forming one after another, as if an invisible entity was slowly walking toward us. Yet there, nothing could be seen, only the dust settling down. With every depression came that heavy breath. We started backing away. Right then, bam! An impact hit the stone wall to our right so hard that the entire cave shuddered. Shining our lights, we saw a brand new crack, as if something had slammed into it from the inside. Mason ran toward the ropes, but the rope where it had been anchored was gone. The knot hadn't untied. It wasn't cut. The entire rope had vanished. We all froze. 160 feet below ground, our only way out was gone. Olivia began to cry. Right then, someone spoke right next to my ear, very softly. "Come down." I turned around. No one was there. But in the floor dust, next to my boot, 5 long fingers of a giant handprint slowly materialized, as if an invisible hand was resting on the ground. Desperate, we fired up our emergency radio. Incredibly, the rangers above picked up our signal and managed to drop a secondary rope. We began climbing up one by one. I was the last in line. Halfway up, I made the mistake of looking down. As my headlamp beam hit the cave floor, I saw clearly. In the middle of the darkness were 2 abnormally large, pale eyes. They weren't blinking, they were just staring directly at me, followed by a long, slow, heavy exhale. Since that incident, I have never descended into Moaning Cavern again. The documentary camera was recovered later. However, the last 4 minutes of the video contained only a black screen and a recorded sound. A sound that was not human, nor that of any known animal. Only the deep, slow breathing of a massive entity emerging from the dark. Even now, when I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I feel, underneath my bed, in that exact same rhythm, someone is breathing. You are listening to True Horror Vault. Through 4 episodes, we have heard the experiences of people lost in the darkness of Tennessee's Bell Witch Cave, Kentucky's Mammoth Cave, and California's Moaning Cavern. But today's final account is the most terrifying of all. Because this is a cave where people have gone missing for years, search teams have reported hearing strange noises, and locals believe that deep inside the cave, something rests, that awakens the moment it senses a human presence. Today's incident took place at Ape Cave, Skamania County, Washington, USA. Story 4. The Shadows of Lava River Cave. Location: Lava River Cave, Bend, Oregon, USA. My name is Jacob Anderson. I live in Bend, Oregon. Since childhood, volcanic lava tubes or lava caves have fascinated me. On a Friday night in September 2021, I decided to take my friends Matthew, Emily, and Jason to do some night photography inside Lava River Cave. We thought it would be a routine adventure. We were wrong. It was 9:12 p.m. We climbed down the iron staircase into the cave. Above, there was moonlight. Below, absolute darkness. The moment we stepped down, we felt an unusual, heavy, cold pressure on our bodies. Not due to the weather. It felt like someone was staring at us. For the first half hour, there were no issues. We were taking pictures, shooting videos. Suddenly, Emily said, "Do you guys see that person ahead?" About 100 feet away, a human-like shadow. Our headlamps were aimed at it, but the light seemed to pass right through its body. I thought it was an optical illusion. I raised my camera and zoomed in. The shadow was still standing there, but on the camera screen, there was nothing. As we stepped closer, the shadow slowly turned to the left and vanished into a narrow tunnel. Jason said, "Let's go check it out." I wanted to say no, but curiosity won. The tunnel was so narrow that walking side by side was impossible. We walked in a single line. I was in front. Behind me was Matthew, then Emily, and finally, Jason. About 5 minutes later, Jason suddenly shrieked out loud, "Who grabbed my bag?" We all turned around. No one was near him. Yet the lower part of his backpack looked as though someone had pulled it from behind. The strap was torn. Right then, a scratching, rustling sound began echoing from the walls around us. I shone my light. On the walls were dozens of tall shadows. But where did so many shadows come from? Even more terrifying, the shadows weren't matching our movements. We had stopped completely, yet the shadows on the walls were walking. My throat went dry. Matthew whispered, "Should we run?" Before I could answer, all the shadows stopped simultaneously. Then, slowly, turned to face directly toward us. At that exact moment, all our headlamps died at once. The entire cave plunged into darkness. A few seconds later, my backup emergency light flickered on. As the light hit, Emily was gone. She had been standing right between us a few seconds ago. Now she was gone. We began calling her name frantically. Emily! A response came from a distance. I'm over here. But the sound echoed from 3 directions at the same time. The exact same voice. At the exact same time. Impossible. As we moved toward the voice, we reached a large chamber. On the dusty floor were dozens of footprints. All were bare feet. All led in one direction. But not a single footprint led back. As I raised my light ahead, my heart turned to ice. Emily was standing there. She was facing us. But her face had no expression whatsoever. I tried to run toward her. Matthew grabbed my arm tightly. Trembling, he said, "Look at her feet." I looked down. Emily's upper body was facing us. But both of her feet were twisted completely backward, in an impossible manner. The moment I took a step forward, she slowly raised her head. Her eyes were completely jet black. No white visible at all. Then, she gave a smile. That could not belong to a human. In an instant, she dissolved, just like smoke into the air. In her place lay only Emily's camera. Picking up the camera, we searched frantically for an exit route. But the path we took kept bringing us back to the same spot, as if the cave itself was shifting. Suddenly, from behind us, came the sound of numerous people running. I flashed my light behind us. No one was there, yet the sound was coming closer and closer. It felt as though an invisible crowd was sprinting toward us. Right then, far off, I caught a faint sliver of outside light. We ran with our remaining strength and burst out of the cave. Gasping for breath outside, we looked back into the entrance. Inside the dark doorway, 4 human shadows were standing. Only 3 of us had come out. So, whose was the 4th shadow? In a split second, all the shadows melted back into the darkness. We went back inside later with the park rangers. After nearly 4 hours of searching, Emily was found. She was lying unconscious at the far end of the cave system. Upon regaining consciousness, she said only one thing. They wouldn't let me leave. They kept saying, if one more stays, we'll be 4 again. Since then, Emily has never spoken of that night again. And as for me, even today, whenever I stand in a dark room, I look at my own shadow first. And then, I check one more time, to make sure it's actually mine. You are listening to True Horror Vault. Over the last 4 parts, we have heard the terrifying experiences of people lost in the darkness of 4 notorious American caves. But today's final story is the most terrifying of all. Because this is a cave where people have gone missing year after year. Rescuers have claimed to hear bizarre noises, and locals firmly believe that deep inside, something waits. That awakens the moment it detects a human presence. Today's incident took place at Ape Cave, Skamania County, Washington, USA. Story 5. The Final Echo of Ape Cave. Location, Ape Cave, Washington, USA. My name is Daniel Reed. I live in Vancouver, Washington. In October 2024, my friends Kevin, Hannah, Brian, and I decided to hike the entire lava tube of Ape Cave at night. The ranger had given us a final warning before we went in. If you hear a sound in the dark that no one in your group made, leave immediately. We didn't take it seriously. About 40 minutes into the cave, we all heard a sound at the exact same time. Clap, clap, clap. Kevin asked, "Who clapped?" We all looked at each other. No one did. A few minutes later, the exact same clapping. This time, much closer. I pointed my light at the cave wall and saw numerous handprints on the black basalt rock. All of them were wet. It looked as though someone had placed their hands there just a second ago. Suddenly, the air around us turned unnaturally cold. My breath turned into visible white vapor. There was no physical reason for that section of the cave to be so cold. Then, Brian whispered, "Someone is walking behind us." I stopped. The footsteps stopped too. I started walking. Again, another pair of footsteps. Slowly, at the exact same pace, following us. We decided to exit quickly, but the path we entered through was nowhere to be found. The GPS wasn't working. The compass was spinning. The radio produced only static noise. Further down, the voice echoed directly from our radio. But there was no one else on that frequency. Hannah suddenly broke into tears. She said, "Look over there." We aimed our lights. In the distance, a figure was standing. Its body was as black as the surrounding dark, but its two eyes were abnormally white. It didn't move an inch. As I raised my camera, the figure was gone. However, on my camera screen, it was still standing there. And slowly, from inside the screen, it was stepping closer. In terror, I dropped the camera. From all around us, the exact same words began to echo. Stay, stay, stay. Every wall of the cave, every crevice seemed to be speaking. We sprinted. Suddenly, Kevin yelled out. He collapsed to the ground. His leg was being held firmly by an unseen force. Brian and I pulled him with all our strength. Right then, in the dust on the floor, 10 long finger drag marks slowly formed. No one was visible. Yet, the marks let go of Kevin's leg and slowly retreated into the dark. Running for our lives, we finally made it near the cave entrance. The sunlight outside was visible, and right at that moment, one final time, from behind us came that clapping sound. Clap, clap, clap. I didn't look back. After reaching safety outside, we checked the camera footage. All the videos were clear, except for the last minute. The screen was pitch black, but there was audio. First, the sound of the four of us heavy breathing. Then, clearly, the breathing of a fifth person. And in the very last second, a low voice whispered, 4 of you entered, 5 came out. America's ancient caves are not just collections of rock, darkness, and history. There are places where mysteries older than humanity wait silently in the dark. Whether you believe these occurrences or dismiss them as mere urban legends, that choice is yours. But if you ever enter a dark cave and suddenly feel as if your group has gained an extra member, whatever you do, do not look back. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to True Horror Vault, because every week we bring you the most mysterious, dark, and spine-chilling true accounts from across America. Until next time, stay safe and never fully trust the dark.